Why, hello, ladies and gentlemen. On today's show, Esteury Ruiz makes his debut for your San Diego Padres. Yu Darvish throws another really splendid game. Going to be talking about him. Some news regarding a certain player the Padres may be after, and overall winning the last series before the All-Star break. You know what you guys are listening to, so let's get on started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, July. As always, I'm your host with something, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. Follow me on Twitter at Javapeno. That's spelled Javieno. Or if you want just Padres content, Locked On Padres YouTube channel as well. Locked On, if you want to see the lovely shirt that I'm wearing. It may or may not have to do with the highest grossing entertainment franchise, media franchise, whatever you want to call it in history. Sure. You'll have to go check that out. And of course, at LO_Padres if you want exclusively Padres tweets. Guys, it's time for a good old-fashioned weekend recap. That's right, recapping this last series the Padres played against the D-backs and some news that actually occurred over the weekend as well. We're going to run through this really quickly because, by the time you guys are watching this or listening to it, it might be time for the home run derby to get started. So I don't want to keep you occupied. And don't get me wrong, the home run derby, not necessarily something that Padres fans will be watching, or should I say watching intently, because there is no Fernando Tatis, there is no Manny Machado, heck, there's no Luke Voit, right? Tatis voiced a desire to do so, but of course he was hurt last year, unfortunately. But nonetheless, guys, we got to talk about this weekend because this weekend did give us some cool stuff to talk about. This game, which was one in which the Padres won 5-3 on the back of Mr. Yu Darvish, which was awesome. Aside from getting some RBIs from Ha-Seong Kim and Esteury Ruiz and Austin Nola, who had a nice double in this game as well, it was a pretty good overall game. It didn't start out great for Yu Darvish, serving up a home run in the first inning to Ketel Marte, but overall, really solid line for the superstar sort of ace, at least in terms of name value and all that stuff, right? 7 innings, 3 earned runs on 5 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 9. His ERA on the year, 3.41. He also threw 114 pitches. That to emphasize which is that Darvish has just been so quietly effective this year, and he's been going deep into games, which is really, really nice. I can't remember the last time he didn't go at least 6 innings, which is big for a team that has had bullpen and has issues with, right? So it is really nice to see Darvish kind of come out this year and be really effective. The last time he didn't go 6 innings was way before even May 19th. Right? Like that was the last time he went less than 6 innings. So that's really cool. And I've been wondering, maybe, and I posed this question on a podcast before, is it possible that we weren't looking at the right thing last year with Darvish? And that maybe, yeah, the sticky stuff affected him and affected his spin rate maybe last year. But the spin rate has still been pretty good for the most part this year in a lot of ways. And more importantly, maybe it wasn't a sticky stuff thing. Maybe it was a second half because he's just fundamentally getting older sort of thing, right? But I will say, if this is the new version of Yu Darvish, which is a guy who may go for a little bit more on contact stuff. I know his ground ball rate is a little bit down and what have you. Maybe he's just trying to last longer into games. And yes, he's going to give you that Ketel Marte home run and whatnot, but I'll take it, especially on this team that has a really deep pitching staff. And I know his strikeout rate is the lowest of his career by far. It's sitting at 23%. The lowest of his career was 27.2 back in 2018, or at least from what I'm looking at right now. It's been a while since his strikeout rate was this low. So that's a little bit of a decrease, but walk percentage down to 5.1 from the 6. And overall, I think that we've seen that his cutter has been really effective. If you look at run value, if you look at the fact that he's added more of an inch on his on the break of the pitch. That's really cool. So he's been disguising his pitches better and just not getting hit nearly as much as he was before. Maybe not the strikeouts, right? We know you Darvish for strikeouts, but I'll take what he's been giving us because fundamentally he's allowing less runs. The big question with him is going to be how long does he last for the rest of the season, right? Is that what I suggested, right? Is what I suggested that his decline last year was because of age and that he can't hold up for a season, or was it the sticky stuff? I don't know, but we're going to find out in the second half. That probably is one of my biggest questions, actually, for the Padres in the second half of the season. So that should be really, really interesting to follow. The other big thing on this, of course, was Esteury Ruiz, who played for the team. That was really, really fun. He was, exciting, I think is the word to say it. Having the socks and what have you. He played, and he played okay, I guess, so far during the stretch of when he debuted. I actually made a mistake. I forgot that he debuted against the Rockies, which was cool. Going 2 for 4 in that game. He had a hit in every single game. He's had a couple doubles so far. Not the most impressive slash line in the world because he just started. It's only 6 games, 263 batting average and 263 on base. So he hasn't had a walk yet, but 421 slugging. And like I said, with the 2 doubles, he also has a steal to his name, which is nice, and also made a nice diving catch this weekend, which was Ruiz is definitely one of those lottery. I'm not going to say lottery ticket in the sense that they just acquired some 17-year-old. I mean, in the set, he's the hope of this Padres team right now. He is this kind of, prospect that you're calling up that nobody's really talked about recently, and you're hoping he can be that guy that just comes up and is awesome, like immediately, right? And at least a solid player overall, kind of like the way Jake Cronenworth was that guy no one was talking about and came in and gave the Padres a huge, huge blessing. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully Ruiz can do that because an outfield of Profar, who welcome back, by the way, great to see him healthy and everything. That was the most important thing. Ruiz, and then a mixture of Grisham slash Tatis, which I imagine is where they're going to play Tatis, maybe in right field, heck, maybe even center field. We'll have to see how that plays out. And Grisham might be the 4th outfielder off the bench at this point. The guy can't hit, and he made some defensive miscues this weekend. So we're going to have to see how that all goes down. But Esteury Ruiz, really, really interesting. And also, like I said earlier, some RBIs from our boy Ha-Seong Kim, which is really nice. Some small ball 5-3 victory for the Padres. So that was very nice, guys. But before we move on and talk about the next game, let's talk about something important. Let's talk about Blue Nile, the original online jeweler to high-income adults, primarily some male folks. Maybe you're looking to get engaged. That's what this has for you guys. You can celebrate all of life's special moments, from gifting the custom engagement ring of their dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And there's 2 parts to this business, guys. It's very important. There's wedding jewelry and there's fine jewelry. Wedding jewelry is like engagement rings and bands, and the other stuff is like necklaces and cocktail rings and diamond jewelry in general, right? Do not worry. They've got you covered in all those things. And I'm not a big jewelry person. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do have some good looks, as anybody who's watched the YouTube channel knows. I'm rocking a certain shirt right now. Represent. Let me know in the comments which one of these folks you chose, or would choose, I should say. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But seriously though, it's really cool, guys. They've got all these online tools to help you choose the size, the shape of the diamond, and kind of the style of it overall, which is really, really cool. So go check that out. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings and what have you. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Let's keep it all moving. And thank you for making today your first listen. I know that this is a little bit late of an upload. Tomorrow's won't be, but nonetheless, thank you for listening to the podcast, free and available on all platforms. Let's talk about Saturday's game. I also forgot to mention they defeated Madison Bumgarner in Friday's game for the D-backs. And I love beating Madison Bumgarner. The Padres won another one, 4-3, a close game over the Diamondbacks on Saturday. It was a little bit of a mini sort of crazy day of bullpen stuff. The Diamondbacks were mixing and matching. They didn't have a reliever go aside from Middleton, Kenyon Middleton, more than an inning. They had a couple guys that went one for 1 out and a couple guys who went for 2 outs, and that's it. So that was interesting. But the big story in this game, there's actually probably two big stories in this game for the Padres. Number one is Sean Manaea delivering yet again another solid start. 6 innings, 3 earned runs on 7 hits, 2 walks, and only 3 strikeouts, which was unfortunate. Sean Manaea, look, he's not bad. I know that the 4.1 ERA is less than desirable, but you have to keep in mind that he's just not getting lit up all that often. He's a steady sort of starter. And again, I don't know how many times I have to say this. In this Padres rotation, he is doing just fine. And I think he's going to get better, actually. Although, again, this is not a guy that I think is a wipeout ace. He has those games where he looks like a wipeout ace. In fact, actually against Colorado, he was kind of looking like that for a little bit. I know he had a start against the Brewers where only gave up a run, but for the most part, he's just a okay kind of back end starter who's going to be occasionally better than a back end starter. So he was fine in this game overall, even if the triple from Buddy Kennedy, who I never heard of in my life before this game, and the Carson Kelly home run wasn't great. But don't worry, because Matthew Batten came in to save the day with a double, allowing Trent Grisham to score, who got on base in this game, despite some miscues in the outfield, which was weird. That is a weird thing about Grisham, is that while I think he is a solid defender, he's certainly not a plus defender. This is not Jackie Bradley Jr. This is not even Tyler O'Neill. This is not a Cardinals player of any kind, right? He's solid, but then he has these weird miscues where he misjudges the distance between him and the ball, or he even heck drops the ball sometimes. He's very, very weird. And honestly, it's getting to the point where I don't really like making fun of the guy. I mean, I don't like making fun of nearly any player, the ground ball gremlin, first baseman who must not be named. But with him, it's just kind of like unfortunate because at this point, it does feel like at least part of this has to be mental. And he's clearly not having a fun time out there. You know what I'm saying? So I hope he gets better, but it does not seem like he's the future starting center fielder for the Padres. But anyway, the biggest thing in this game, Luke Voit hitting a 3-run home run that ended up being the game winning home run in the bottom of the 6th. He pimped it. He was a no-doubter. It was great, allowing Machado and Jake Cronenworth to score, which was great. Taylor Rogers nailing down the save, which is nice and juicy because Rogers has been struggling lately. And we talked about that on a previous episode. My thing being, I'm fine with keeping Taylor Rogers as the closer. I really just don't see, with all the different areas of need that this team has, that there will be an obtainable arm necessarily. I know Robertson's been very good for the Cubs this year, but I'm just saying I smell the slight regression with him coming, maybe a little bit. It does feel a little bit like the resurgence is out of nowhere and almost like perfect time for his career's sake. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I do trust Rodgers. I think that he's going to get better. I think he's going to be fine. I think he just went through a really, really crazy regression to the mean that's kind of gotten a little bit out of control. If the Padres do get another closer, I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think it's necessarily the number one area. I think overall, just getting better relievers is kind of what the Padres need to do, right? They need to get some middle inning guys because Dinelson Lamet, he got sent out. He's been a mess, right? You can't really count on him necessarily. Maybe Morejon can do that. Maybe Nick Martinez, who showed up in the game, right? Like maybe guys like that. But overall, I'm not saying they can go out and get Josh Hader or whatever the heck, right? They can't do that. They can't do that. But Luke Voit, it's interesting because Luke Voit for the second half, he's going to be something I keep an eye on, but both numbers wise and my eye test. With the Javier Reyes eye tests, esoteric analysis. Let's start with the eye test stuff. He's striking out a whole lot, which isn't great. He is walking, which has been counteracting it a little bit. He's always been a decent batter when it comes to his walk rate, 11.3%, which is the highest since 2019, which is very, very cool. But his strikeout rate is over 30% at 32.8. It did bloat last year at 31 or 30.7%. So one of the things with him is the increase in strikeout rate isn't great. I know he walks a decent amount, but just overall, I'd like to see that batting average tick up a little bit. It seems like he's forcing the issue. He was like 0 for 18 before that home run heading into that game. And that's the thing, been really streaky. And if the Padres are hoping that this can be their main power bat outside Machado and hopefully when Tatis comes back, I think that that's going to be not necessarily the best bet to make going forward. We'll see what happens with him. One positive, his ground ball rate is down, which is really cool. 41% last year. It is at 35.7%, which is kind of in line with kind of his career best season of 2018, which is nice. But overall, I'm just having trouble totally seeing it for Luke Voit this season. I think he gets fooled on some pitches and is trying to do a little bit too much. And with the esoteric analysis, my thing is mention that strikeout rate ballooning a little bit to 30% last year. The Yankees, as much as people like to make fun of them, not a stupid organization, right? So my view on this is maybe the Yankees just knew something from stats that I'm not super smart enough to understand. Kind of knew, yeah, all right, we have Anthony Rizzo at first. And that occasionally maybe they can play some other guys there, right? Like DJ LeMahieu or whoever the heck they have on that team, right? Maybe that was what it was. And they just figured, let's just get rid of Voit because he's not going to have at bats on this team. Or they figured, one, he's not going to have at bats on this team. And two, he's in line for some serious regression. And he's not that superstar slugger that he was in 2020 for, a prorated season, a shorter season. And they just kind of knew, let's at least trade him before people find that out and get this pitching prospect for the Padres, who notoriously have missed on a lot of trades and their pitching development isn't always the best. And they've been sending over some quality guys over the past few seasons. So maybe that's what happened. This is not like they acquired Voit from the Kansas City Royals or, some other low tier team, right? And the Cincinnati Reds, where it's just like, yeah, they're just selling to sell. Maybe the Yankees knew something. Maybe they did. Yeah, maybe they did, guys. Maybe they did. There was one more game that occurred this weekend that honestly is better left not discussed, for being honest, folks. For being honest. But before we get, ladies and gentlemen, let me take another quick break to talk to you about, maybe tonight you got a good feeling. Maybe you think Pete Alonso is going to go for the three-peat. Maybe you think Julio Rodriguez. Who knows? My boy. I love Julio Rodriguez. Super fun. Great smile. Maybe you think he's going to win the Derby. Maybe you want to make a bet. Well, guess what, guys? BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Major League Baseball stuff, they got you covered, man. You want MVP odds, you want odds for every game, whatever you want. Your live betting stuff and your esports and all the scores updated in real time, guys. It remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events. So what are you waiting for? Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. Let's keep it moving, folks. Let's talk quickly about this last game before we get into the fun news that occurred over the weekend. The Padres lost the last game of the set 3-1 with Merrill Kelly, who's been quietly pretty okay for the D-backs. Again, D-backs are a team the Padres have been playing really well against. They're not like a great baseball team, but they're certainly not a pushover. They've got some guys on this team that can do stuff. And Merrill Kelly is one of them, right? They have Zach Gallen, even Madison Bumgarner has delivered a little bit. So not an atrocious baseball team, just a team that clearly is rebuilding. Well, they can still beat someone every now and then. This isn't the Cubs or the Royals or heck, even sometimes the Marlins, right? The Nationals, those type of teams. They're like a little bit of a tier above that. So shouts to Miller Thomas of Locked On D-backs. He does a great job over there. I'm happy that he has at least something to watch. So Merrill Kelly in this game, 6 innings, 1 earned run on 6 hits, no walks, 5 Ks. Padres just couldn't hit the guy. Luke Voit is the only one that managed anything in this game with a 1-for-4 performance with a home run, which was very nice. Don't get me wrong, especially for my fantasy team, my deep 16-team league. That's why I have Luke Voit on my team. Look, this is just what happens sometimes. It's okay. I still think winning the series was very important. I would have loved the sweep, but like I said, D-backs not a terrible team. And again, the Padres still have a positive record. Although the series against the Rockies was extraordinarily depressing and really might have portended of what's to come, it could have been that way. They're still 52-42, and they still have a lot of hope on the horizon. Heck, out of this series, I know that they play the Mets. I'll actually be going to the game on Saturday, which I'm really excited for. Then they've got Detroit. Look, there's still a whole lot of season left, and we talk about it all the time. Still have to see. And, AJ Preller, he's probably Mike Clevinger, probably the unfortunate what's the called recipient of a loss in this game. 6 innings, 1 earned run on 4 hits, 2 walks, and 8 Ks. He did give up some big hits, but I still think that overall, David Peralta, by the way, just a Padres killer. I still think that overall, Mike Clevinger looked really, really solid. And I think that, you know, Clevinger is going to be that other thing. I think him and Darvish are going to be like super huge for this team. Um, Heading down the stretch and heading into the second half of the season overall. I think that Clevinger has shown that if he's healthy, he's still extraordinarily effective. I mean, this has just been only a question of health for Mike Clevinger for the most part. He also had 16 whiffs across his arsenal, 9 from his fastball, which was nice. He was throwing a decent amount of sliders and cutters. He looked pretty comfortable out there. And it just happened to be that the Padres couldn't hit Merrill Kelly. So not worried in the sense of Mike Clevenger's stuff. I clearly think that he shows it. One thing I talked about for this season was Clevinger. What if he is a guy that because he's coming off this Tommy John surgery, that it'll be the second half of the season when he starts to put things back together and he's really fully recovering, getting back into the swing of things. Then maybe we'll see what the Padres originally traded for. Based on this start and based on previous starts, hopefully that is the case, right? Again, this is a guy who was one of the most effective guys in baseball. I put out a stat actually recently for all you stat heads that may enjoy the old stats and whatnot. ERA plus, which is a good stat for just looking at ERA, but in a way that isn't just kind of puts a bunch of things together. We don't have to get into that now. But in terms of ERA plus, what is it called? Here, let me get it real quickly. The ERA plus leaders through a player's first 4 seasons since 2000. The leaders are Jose Fernandez, number 1, Chris Sale, Barry Zito, Roy Oswalt, and number 5, Mike Clevinger. Mike Clevinger, that's right. Through first 4 seasons, he has one of the 5 best ERA plus numbers for the first 4 seasons of their career. And the other names on that list, Brandon Webb, Tim Lincecum, Kyle Hendricks, Shane Bieber, Clayton Kershaw. It's not like I named a bunch of names on there that are nobodies, right? It's not like I put on there Chris Archer, or I put on Chris Archer catching a stray right now, but you get what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very good list. The only kind of below guy is maybe Kyle Hendricks. You could argue Lincecum, but Lincecum was lit for a little fall off. There's some good names on here in terms of overall stuff, right? And I know Hendricks is probably a little bit weak on here, but Hendricks isn't the worst thing in the world. He had a few good seasons for the Cubs. So that's what kind of company and kind of potential Mike Clevinger is currently in. So guys, stay tuned on that. Stay tuned on that. I'm hoping that he can be really good in the second half. The last thing we got to talk about is a bombshell, ladies and gentlemen. It got tweeted out by Jeff Passan first, or not Jeff Passan first, my mistake. It got tweeted out by Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, who was reporting that Juan Soto turned down this $15-year, $440 million contract, which was an annual average value of about $29 million. He turned that down, and that the team is expected to explore options. So I'm actually going to be doing a whole episode on this for tomorrow's show that you guys can look forward to. I'll be wearing the same shirt as well because I'm going to be recording it today. But with this news, obviously everyone's talking Padres. Reportedly from John Heyman, the Padres are very much interested, which duh, right? And we're going to talk all about that on tomorrow's episode. But my first thing with this will be, I do not think this is a simple situation for the Padres. It is similar to how I felt about the Brian Reynolds situation. Brian Reynolds, for the record, started off slow, but he's been really ramping it up. He always starts a little bit slow. He's been ramping it up. And I talked about how this is tricky. This is not so easy because the Padres don't have a great outfield situation right now. They have their farm system hasn't taken as much of a hit as maybe we thought it was going to take, with Gore looking really good. I know he also only gotten out, by the way, on Sunday. Forgot to mention that. Hoping that he's not having that rookie fall off the rookie wall. I'm really hoping that he's at least going to be okay for the rest of the way. But with Gore being someone who's broken out, right? With Robert Gasser, with James Wood, with Esteury Ruiz, who's now on the team, right? And then you've got Robert Hassel and CJ Abrams and Luis Campos. There's at least some guys in this farm system, despite how much they've traded out. over the years and what have you guys. So that is a reason to be optimistic, I think, if you're a Padres fan. So that's really cool. So the question is, do you want to destroy that for Juan Soto? Now, let me tell you, if you're going to destroy your farm, if you're going to make a big trade, Juan Soto's great. We know that, right? So all I'm saying is before you guys see this episode tomorrow or listen to it, just keep in mind, I do not think this is so easy of a situation to figure out. And obviously, it's going to be the big one that everyone's going to be talking about for a while, probably for the rest of All-Star Weekend, by the way. This is going to be a story. I would love nothing more for the record in the middle of tonight's home run derby for a trade to be announced, just anywhere but the Dodgers. If it's not the Padres, just anywhere but the Dodgers, because that would be annoying. But it would just be fun for my NBA heads out there. If you guys remember when DeMarcus Cousins got traded in the middle of the All-Star game, it's just wild fun. As just a media person who enjoys hype and ridiculousness on the internet, that would be fun. But going to talk about that tomorrow. Going to also talk about over at one point this week, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday, my 5 biggest questions for the Padres heading into the second half, guys. So lots of fun stuff. Lots of fun stuff. And with that all being said, everybody, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me on Twitter at IIPENO or at LO_Padres. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.